Hello, Beast, and welcome back to a mystery. Welcome to Spook Thunder. Just a couple of hours ago, Gaijin released this trailer, which you just saw, hinting at the April Fool's event for April 1st, coming in a couple of days. Now, it has been a bit of a mystery what this is all about, with many wild speculations going about, but now that we actually have some video footage, let's do a little frame-by-frame analysis to try to figure out what is going on. So one thing is very clear, as you can see by the school bus and the very abandoned urban area, this is most likely set in America. Supposedly, this is set in a fictional location of Green Hills, somewhere in America. The city apparently has been closed down by a chemical accident, but we will go into that a little bit later. The accident apparently was in 1962, and this is happening now in 1992, 30 years after the supposed accident. As you can see here in the newspaper, sadly we can't make out what is written in the article itself. All we have is the titles. Numerous factors can cause accidents. Will citizens ever get back home? Why is the city still closed? Supposedly 30 years after a chemical accident, you would expect things to be a little bit more clean, let's say. Now, interesting fact here, you're going to notice that this is a bit anachronistic. This car right here, it looks a lot like a Volkswagen bus of some type. A more advanced one, which is not exactly a 60s type car. This came after. This came way after. In fact, you're going to see quite a few cars, like a 90s era Crown Vic police car, NYC taxis, that aren't quite correct with the times. Here we have an M551 Sheridan, okay, at this time correct, but does indicate the presence of the military in the city. The military in the city, what have they forgotten here? What indeed? Where are the gas masks? Now, this made some people confused, thinking about maybe this was going to be a test for chemical weapons of something like that, but look at this little bit here, it's very easy to miss. Half the text is cut out and we don't get a look at it, but live in Green Hills without hazard suits. Does it mean that people still live in Green Hills? Does it mean that maybe the military personnel lives in Green Hills? But they aren't using hazard suits. But if the city was closed due to a chemical accident, wouldn't they need hazard suits? Wouldn't they need gas masks? This kind of indicates that this is in fact a government cover-up. This city is not closed because of a chemical accident. This is not what happened here. The military are freaked in Green Hills. So this clearly indicates that something is going on. 30 years after the city has been abandoned, the military is just occupying the entire area. You can also see here a little bit here, which is maybe important. My dog was terrified. He stayed indoors to keep away from the thunder of trucks. Now, dogs usually are associated with being able to pre-sense natural disasters. Maybe something more. Maybe something more than just a natural disaster. Maybe something extraterrestrial. Here you can see a bit more of the city landscape. Tall building, everything abandoned. Here you can see the cop cars. Not quite 60s area. A bit more of the taxis and a bit more of the buses. I've been trying to go frame by frame here, trying to see if I can find anything more, but you can't really see anything from the map itself. This newspaper article mentions strange lights, which by General Dallas was dismissed as being simply chemical reactions with oxygen in the air. But we pretty much established that it wasn't chemicals. It wasn't a chemical accident that caused the evacuation of the city, else the personnel would be using hazmat suits. Especially not 30 years after the incident. Nuclear, yes. Chemical, 30 years after the incident, would they still be causing strange lights? I don't believe so. Here you can see a closer look at the taxi model. The abandoned dump truck on the left. Quite a wide open road. Nature has been claiming this whole area back, slowly but surely. And here's another interesting tidbit. A former resident of the city could not remember anything. Apparently he's been given some kind of amnesiac. This in fact reminds me a lot of the SCP Foundation, if you are into that whole fandom. In recent West Hills Times interview, a former citizen of Green Hills could not remember any street in the town or a public library at his given old address. Why would he not be able to remember anything? You can also see the dates, April 1st, 1992, indicating this is indeed 30 years after the supposed incident. Now going back to just a tangent theory here, what if this is somehow tying in the SCP Foundation? What if there is something anomalous going on? What if that particular citizen witnessed that and was given an amnesiac to forget about the whole thing? And finally, this might just be the weirdest thing. We have a sort of flyover over the map and you see those buildings over there? This right here seems to be the Willis Tower in Chicago, which used to be the highest building in the Western Hemisphere until the World Trade Center was rebuilt. These two, however, these are not American buildings. A little bit of research here. As you can see, this was indeed the Willis Tower on the left side. The one in the middle is this right here. This was the project for the Shanghai World Financial Center, a Chinese building. What is a Chinese building doing in a small American town? And right next to it is the Bank of China in Hong Kong. So you have a building from Shanghai, you have a building from Hong Kong that makes two Chinese buildings in a supposed American city. I tried reading up a bit on the Willis Tower, but I couldn't really find anything that would relate even closely to what we are seeing here. Unless we are to suppose that this might be a town in Chicago, but I don't believe so. You can also see the railway, or I suppose this might be some kind of railway or maybe some kind of highway area on the left side that has been broken. You can see the ruins on the right side as well. This supposedly has been going over the river and then dropped, was destroyed. But it really intrigues me what these are. And what this building is. I wasn't quite able to find this one. This one also seems to be one building in Chicago. Although it's quite generic, so I can't really pinpoint that. Now finally, I want to show you a sound bit from the end, in case you missed that. Listen closely, especially if you have headphones on. Listen closely to the right side of your headphones. Did you hear that? Let me play it again. That was someone or something having heavy issues with breathing in. There was a very faint, very hard-labored attempt to breathe in. What could this indicate? Now, of course, there are a couple of theories floating around from the community. The most obvious being, of course, aliens, government cover-up, people having amnesia, dogs being terrified, the city having been closed for 30 years and military disappearing there. It's the most likely theory. It might be aliens coming to War Thunder in April 1st, but I have a bit of a different theory, perhaps. See, what intrigues me the most is why specifically show these two Chinese buildings. Why do we have two detailed Chinese buildings in this April Fool's map? What if this whole thing is going to be a parody of Fallout? I know this might be a bit far-fetched, but hear me out. So we have this kind of semi-futuristic looking city that was abandoned in the 60s. Okay, Fallout kind of has that 60s, 50s, frozen in time style. The city was abandoned, it is in ruins. We have Chinese buildings. Now we know that in Fallout there was a war between China and the US, which is what caused the global nuclear war. What if we are going to have some Chinese infiltrators in the city? What if this might be a hint at the Chinese factory? We have Chinese tanks in the Chinese version of the game. In fact, you can even play some of them in War Thunder itself by porting over the models. Could this maybe be a hint that we're going to see Chinese tanks? So this all started about 5 days ago with a post on Twitter and Facebook from War Thunder itself, mentioning the American city of Green Hills, which doesn't actually exist, and saying it still stays the oldest closest area in the country, only being several years older than the ex-Soviet city Pripyat, which was evacuated after the nuclear accident of 1986, leading people to speculate that maybe we would see some kind of nuclear weapon testing in this upcoming April Fool's event. Now, it doesn't hit at any kind of nuclear testing here with this video, except for maybe the clock at the end of it, hinting maybe at the doomsday clock, but I wouldn't go so far as saying that for the time being. Now, you can see here they did mention a hashtag ARG. ARG generally meaning alternate reality game. And in fact, people have been digging in the files and have been finding something interesting. This is a post by Mike10D, big shout out to him by the way, he is our local resident data miner, he's also the one who generally gets all the data mines for the dev servers before an update comes, before a patch comes, and he found some interesting things. He found a site that leads to a file download. It's a zip file that uses a password. The password has been discovered to be must know the truth. This is related to a sound file that was also found that had Anton Yudinsev's face on it. Anton being the CEO of Gaijin Entertainment. After opening up the zip file, you can find this text file, and I'll read it for you. This is Janine Sala from Green Hills, USA. They are already here. All these years the government has been hiding it from us. They are everywhere. Here in Green Hills they use us. They play us as puppets in a terrible game. People must know the truth. Next transmission in 792,890 seconds after maximum solar noise on satellites. Sell out. Now if the sound file is indeed from the 22nd, then 9 days will be on the 31st, so tomorrow. Maybe we'll know some more from Janine over here. And this is where it really started, the speculation about aliens, of course. They're already here. There's nothing what's used with alien conspiracy theories. City has been closed for 30 years, military is present. Definitely wasn't a chemical accident. Doesn't seem to be anything involving nukes either. Could it be aliens? Or could it be, as I speculated with the presence of Chinese buildings, Chinese infiltration? I'm personally kind of hoping for a Fallout spoof. That would be quite interesting. Maybe we could shoot some super mutant tanks. But in case, this is really all the information we have right now, so I'm going to let you guys in the comments dispute. What do you think this April Fool's event is going to be about? We know it's very soon. It's likely starting tomorrow or just right on April 1st. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you have War Thunder downloaded. April Fool's events tend to be quite nice. We also know that generally speaking, April Fool's event in War Thunder tend to be testing grounds. We've seen the testing of radar with the submarine event. We've seen the testing of composite armor, smoke and helicopter with the April Fool's event 2 years ago or 3 years ago with the modern tanks and helicopters at the time. What is this going to be a testing of? Is this perhaps going to be a testing of a VTOL aircraft, if it is indeed going to be aliens and UFOs? Is it going to be maybe some kind of testing for night vision and thermal vision, given that it did show some night footage of the city? It would kind of fall in with the whole radiation or glowing thing or detection of hidden entities. What about the strange lights in the sky? Could it be stealth planes? Could it be actual UFOs? Could it be the testing of stealth mechanics perhaps? Who knows? All we know is they're out there, and we're going to figure out soon enough.